So a little interesting factoid here. This train, the Floridian slash Capital Limited, is a vestige of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And I know you guys remember I love to nerd out on a little of these things. Here's the story. Before Amtrak was created, the Broadway Limited and a number of the Pennsylvania's famous New York to Midwest trains, so Chicago and St. Louis, had connections to Washington, D.C. that generally operated over the Northern Central line. Most of the Northern Central is now either abandoned or being operated by other companies. Part of it, the MTA Maryland, which is a portion of their streetcar route near Baltimore, steam into history near Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania, and a portion still in freight service from York and above. But that is how a very slow route, how the Pennsylvania would serve Washington, D.C. with these trains from the Midwest. Now, after Amtrak took over, they created a Washington, D.C. section of both the Broadway Limited and the National Limited that ran on the Columbian Port Deposit Line, which is Norfolk Southern's current main freight route between Baltimore and Harrisburg. And these trains would operate up the Northeast Corridor to Perryville, Maryland, before they would turn left and head to Harrisburg. Of course, this didn't generate a whole lot of business beyond Baltimore because once you got past there wasn't much traffic. So Amtrak eventually was able to work with the Baltimore and Ohio, then part of Chessie system, to operate the Washington section of the Broadway Limited over the former B&O route through Cumberland, Maryland, Rockville, Maryland, into Pittsburgh. And this is the genesis of what became the Capital Limited. And so it would operate combined with the Broadway Limited, west of Pittsburgh all the way to Chicago over what was then the Pennsylvania Railroad line. Now we think of it as the Fort Wayne line, the Chicago, Fort Wayne, and Eastern Western Crest line, Ohio. Eventually, though, the Capital began operating on its own, and it was rerouted to what its current route is today, which is the Baltimore and Ohio to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh and Fort Wayne lines of the Pennsylvania Railroad between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and the former New York Central line, now known as Norfolk Southern's Chicago line, all the way into Hammond, Indiana, before getting back again on the Pennsylvania Railroad, which takes it the last lap into Chicago Union Station. So if you really think about it, while the Capital Limited certainly has had its separate identity for quite some time, it really is a vestige of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And one last thing, the name Capital Limited, of course, comes from the original B&O train that operated between Jersey City and Chicago over the Jersey Central, Reading, and its parent, the Baltimore and Ohio. That train was discontinued when Amtrak took over, but the name, of course, later revived, as we have discussed today. So, we are leaving Martinsburg, West Virginia now. Washington, D.C. will be on the way soon, and I hope you've enjoyed riding with me on the Capital Limited / Floridian.